Yeah, welcome back to the channel. If you don't already, make sure you subscribe and click a like on the video and leave us your comments on what we're going to discuss, which could very well be a very big deal in the world of cinema post-coronavirus, which is the news that's come out in the last couple of days that both Cineworld and Odeon Cinemas in the UK, which are owned by AMC and Regal Cinemas in the US, are now refusing to show any Universal Pictures movies for the foreseeable future.
And it's worth saying Odeon's the biggest cinema chain in the UK.
Yes, it is. There's Odeon, obviously Cineworld as well. Cineworld
Cineworld's
still going.
third, is it? Like with View second, maybe? I don't know the stats.
Yeah. I think obviously Cineworld's still going, fingers crossed, because obviously it had some issues pre-coronavirus, but I think obviously they're doing all right at the moment. And they also own Picture House Cinemas as well. But the news yesterday that because of the window break, as it were, for the release of Trolls World Tour, which was released straight onto streaming rather than going to the cinemas, obviously after the cinemas closed, that as John put it so politely earlier, some toys have been thrown out the pram. But yeah, so the theatrical window normally I think is between 10 to 12 weeks. I think probably more towards the 12 weeks. I think there's a few exceptions. Curzon Cinema, obviously, because they distribute their own, the movies that they obviously buy from festivals and whatever they do, they have the facility to do it quicker. So knowing what I know from my job, their window is slightly shorter, but only on films that they have distributed themselves. So for example, what came out last year? So stuff like Disobedience and all those kind of movies, The Souvenir, they all came out after 3 months on DVDs, when it's usually 4, sometimes 5 months.
Release as well. It's not like a Fast and Furious or a Jurassic World.
No, these aren't franchises or multi-million-dollar movies. Yeah, so for the smaller movies, that window is slightly different, particularly for if they've gone on, a lot of companies and studios and distributors use the digital window to promote the DVD release and vice versa. Whereas for Universal, it's a little bit different. And because of what's happened with Trolls World Tour, which is going to be a huge kind of April Easter holiday bonanza at the box office. Obviously the world has changed somewhat since then, but because they've now released it online and it's made at least, from what I'm reading, at least $100 million already just from the streaming. It's changed people's opinions about what's going to happen and what the future holds when we come out of coronavirus.
I think we said because we did a video back when Trolls came out on VOD straight away, and we talked then about how it was going to be a really good case study to see whether or not this could change things. And I think deep down I thought it won't, but as of yesterday's news, it seems to have at least sent a bit of a shockwave through the traditional way of doing things. So should we just talk, John? Do you want to just talk a bit about what has happened? What have AMC and Cineworld said and done?
Well, there's some difference between what they've actually said and what's been reported. They have said that they're not going to be showing any Universal films, or rather, I think they've worded it quite carefully. And they've said that any film that breaks the window, or any studio that breaks the window, we won't be showing certain films from that. But it's worded in a way that I don't think it means some of the headlines that are kind of coming out. I don't think that they're never going to show Universal films again, because they simply won't exist if they decide to not show them. We can go through some of the big Universal films, but they are some of the biggest films of the year. It is like corporate suicide to just decide we're not going to show this because of that. This has been pretty much a necessary baring of teeth from the exhibitors, because where they are placed, it's a really difficult time for them. There's so many films that people are waiting to come onto either a streaming service or Blu-ray and DVD. I think the cinemas have been antsy for an awful long time. This, with Trolls World Tour, was the very first time that we were seeing something like this, and I think it's really thrown shockwaves. And I think if Cineworld, if Odeon, if View, or whoever decided that what they were going to do is just say that's fair enough, we'll see what happens, then they'd have been walked over for all the rest of the time that this plays out. So I don't know. I think they had to do it in order to show some semblance of strength, and I don't think it's just going to be these. I think we're going to see others that do the same, because they have to kind of show a united front. But to be honest with you, the world's changing, and in many ways, the pandemic has not only shown what we're capable of, which is great, but it's also shown how certain systems that were been in place for a long time simply aren't going to work. It's just hastened up, the way that things are going to go. So I don't know. I think it's a really interesting time, but I do think that it's going to be overturned when things get back to relative normality.
I'm interested. So obviously Trolls had a captive audience because everybody's, in lockdown in their houses. Like legally, we are not allowed outside unless we're a key worker or we're going to the shops or whatever happens to be, the specific reasons. So so Universal had a captive audience, in the territories where it released. So I'm really interested to see if a premium VOD is released during, this time next year when normal life is back as was, in April 2021, whether or not their numbers would be quite as big. Because I think there's something special about the cinema, watching with other people, watching on a big screen with the best sound, etc., etc. It's a different ball game. But Scott, you sent a list through yesterday of just the films that Universal have the rights to or have made themselves. Do you want to read that list out and we'll just go through? Because I think once you hear this list, if you don't know already, you'll see that actually how, like Scott said from the outset, how could Odeon survive if they're not showing these films? So go for it, Scotty.
Yeah, it's quite it's quite a list. So this isn't anything. This won't be to do with like release dates. Obviously, a lot of these films are coming. This is just a list of what is on the horizon in the next couple of years. So they obviously own the rights to. They obviously distribute the Minions and Despicable Me, which is huge. The Rise of Gru, which was due out this summer, would have easily taken $1 billion, I'm sure, because it's such a huge franchise, and the Minions are so beloved, particularly by young audiences. Excuse me.
John's not a fan.
No,
well,
Minions was a disaster. It was just a couple of hours. My boys loved it, but hey, what can we do? So if I don't have to go and pay like 20, 30 quid for that, I'll be happy, frankly.
Minions, $1.159 billion.
Yeah,
that was Minions. Despicable Me 3, I think, was the highest grossing one of all of them. So, yeah, and obviously Minions 2.
No, Despicable Me 3 was less. So Minions was 100 million more.
There you go then. But also the Minions Rise of Gru obviously now was going to have, I think Steve Carell was back as Gru in this one, so that adds it more to it. Anyway, they obviously own, distribute Jurassic Park / Jurassic World, the new one of that obviously coming out next summer. Well, at the moment, scheduled to be coming out next summer. Sing 2 was another one on their list of animations. Sing 1 was obviously a very big hit. Lots of expectation for Sing 2. They are in cahoots with Blumhouse, so all of Jason Blum and Blumhouse's horror films. Invisible Man obviously came out early in the year. They have deals with M. Night Shyamalan. They distributed the last few of his films, Glass and Split, and I think The Visit and a few others as well. They also technically, obviously Trolls, we mentioned, they technically still own the rights to Incredible Hulk. Obviously, there won't be any standalone Hulk film because of the distribution that Universal owns most of the rights. So Marvel essentially won't make any money off of making a standalone Hulk film. But never say never. They said the same about Spider-Man all those years ago, and it's changed.
Tom Holland will find some sort of,
hey,
he'll sort it out.
He'll sort it out.
Tom.
He always sorts it out. We love Tom.
Is it his quiz tonight, or was that yesterday?
No, it was last night.
Oh, how'd it go? Was it good?
Oh. I don't know. I didn't watch it. Sorry.
I was too busy watching Jonathan Frakes doing First Contact chatathon. That was really good. But it didn't start till 1 o'clock in the morning, so I watched 10 minutes of it. So I'm really tired.
Yeah, and also the two biggest ones, Universal, Fast and Furious.
Never heard of it.
Mega. Never heard of it. Fast and Furious, obviously absolutely mega. Obviously now it's had its first spin-off. Hobbs and Shaw 2 is on the horizon. Obviously Fast and Furious 9 was due out this summer. I think maybe a couple of weeks ago, actually, or in the next few weeks.
Yeah,
originally.
soon.
Now it's been pushed back to this time next year.
All these films you've mentioned have made, other than maybe the Blumhouse ones, have made over $1 billion. All these big franchises.
True, but in terms of profit, Blumhouse, the profit margins on something like Blumhouse, where they make their horror films for sci-fi movies, whatever, such a huge. He's amazing. But the biggest one, and what will be the biggest movie of this year, and if it still comes out at the end of the year, which fingers crossed it will, and will probably be the biggest film of this year, and maybe even one of the biggest British films of all time, if not the biggest British film of all time, is No Time to Die, aka James Bond 25.
When did Universal lose Sony lose the rights to this? I completely missed that. Passed me by.
So I think it was after. I can't remember if it was after.
Sure, if I should admit to that.
There was something to do with Sony and MGM. I think there was an issue, whatever reasons, but Universal for the UK distribution anyway. it is under the Universal banner. So No Time to Die is a Universal release. Now, fathom in a world where two of the three biggest, franchise cinemas in the UK aren't carrying the biggest film, which feasibly could be the biggest British film of all time, given how well the last two Bond movies have done. It's kind of unheard of. I don't know what you guys think of just about Bond, let alone all of the others, and what that might mean for the cinemas, in terms of their future.
I think it's just. I think it's a game of poker. I think that.
Yeah, I think so.
I think they're bluffing. Right. There's no way that they can. There's just no way. John?
No, I think that it's a real shame. My initial thoughts are the Blumhouse films in particular are great with a cinema audience. Do you know what I mean? Like horror films like that, they're sort of made for the cinema experience. Family films, I guess, can go to premium video now that Disney Plus is kind of in the mix. So I kind of understand that they would have that that audience. And I don't know, it seems to me incredible that they are even thinking about not showing something like Bond or Fast and Furious, because they would make so much money. And they're literally saying, right, we're not going to show it, we're going to throw it all that money. And if one cinema chain decides to show it and the other ones say, no, we're not doing it, they're going to lose so much money and they're going to hasten their end, because we're going to see a world where you just have horror cinemas like in, the center of London. Do you know what I mean? Like you can really see it kind of happening, which I would hate to see. I would hate to see that, because there is no better place to see a film than in a cinema. But I think
places like View would be like, they'd be like, right, we're going to open 24 hours a day, and we're going to just show Bond.
Of course. But I tell you what,
rake it in.
It's not just because of the money or the windows or the Blu-ray sales. It's because the cinema experience in this country in particular has fallen dramatically in the last, 10, maybe even 20 years. Do you know what I mean? So it's not a fun experience to go to a cinema anymore. And yeah, I go to Everyman because those are the ones that are closest to me. And I love it there. They are beautifully decked out. It's a little more expensive, but it's worth it because they have these wonderful couches there, and the whole atmosphere is film fans, making an experience. And I think that if View and not View, Odeon, but View as well, because View are terrible in some places, if they spent more time, more money, more effort and more care to make the cinema experience something that's special, people would say, no, I'm not going to go and, spend 20 quid to see Trolls. I'm going to spend like 50 quid. It's going to be worth my time. And they just haven't. And that's kind of why we are where we are now. Dodgy presentations, awful projections at some point, the crowd control in cinemas is appalling. Broken seats. It's just literally, it's like, this is an old, outdated model that needs to change. And I think things will change, but I'm not sure if this is just a reaction, like the last, death rattles of the old way. But at the moment, currently as it stands, it's not a pleasant experience, especially, and we're in London, right? So we have thousands of cinemas, all over the place. It's wonderful. And we have choice. If you're living in a town that's, not a capital, you haven't got access to all of these different places. You haven't got the chance to say, right, I'm going to go down to Prince Charles and go and watch some fantastic double bill of like 60s, comedies or whatever. You're just not going to have that. So I think we're going to see more boutique cinemas, more cinemas that maybe spend a little more time making it an experience and less on the kind of, here's your 10,000 screens showing the latest blockbuster until the next one comes on. I think that's kind of what we're going to see. And this is the very first step towards that.
Ultimately, they're there to make money. That's all. You've just talked about the consumer side of things, which I completely agree with every single word you said. But Odeon are not going to be, their bottom line is going to be hugely affected if they're not showing these huge blockbusters. So how can they not show them?
I can't look at what
I think it's just shots fired for no.
Yeah, maybe, but what's the point? What are they going to say?
Yeah,
are they going to say, oh no, actually, yeah, you're right, because we can make just as much money. In fact, we don't have to pay you anything, and we can still make tons of money. Because the presentation in many people's homes is actually, it's nowhere near as good as being in a cinema. The sound, the picture, no, it just won't be. But the cost, the fact there's no travel, the fact that you could be comfortable, you don't have to have annoying people on their phones.
You can pause it.
Well, I mean, I'm not a massive fan of that, but you know what I mean? The cinema experience has never been able to be replicated. Of course, and if you spend 20 quid, you've got like 2 hours, 2 days to watch a film. If you can't do it all at once, whereas if you pay your 20 quid in the cinema, one of them gets sick, you've got to be out of there. Do you know what I mean?
Someone's munching in front of you on their phone.
Yeah, man, it's a crazy time.
We're spoiled at press screenings with the guys with the night vision.
Man.
They're my favourite guys. Scott, turn your phone off.
When you have to,
I never have my phone on.
Oh, I never either.
We've had like 10 years of of a press screening. So when I stopped doing reviews of the site, I then started to go to normal screenings, and the difference is obviously huge because people are paying attention and it's their job and blah blah blah. But people just don't care in the cinema now, and it's every single time. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. It's not a nice experience, and I do think
we verged into
I know rants
what's
about
wrong with the
cinemas now, I'm sorry. It is all part of it. It is all part of it. Do you know what I mean? And I think
it is.
All Odeon can say is stamp their feet, throw their toys out, and say, right, that's it. We're not going to show any Universal. I'm taking my ball and I'm going home. They're going to be like, well, okay, fine, we can do it another way.
Yeah, see you later.
I don't understand. I don't get what their end game is. I don't understand why. I understand why they're having to show strength, but I don't understand why they're doing it. Because if you, who currently haven't come out and said anything, are sort of checking social media and saying, you know what, we could make a killing. Exclusive Bond screenings. Do you know what I mean? It's just, I don't know. It's mad. It's a strange time made stranger, but I think these changes are coming anyway.
Yeah, for sure. I think what I was going to quickly do is I've got the end of the statement that Cineworld put out. Must have been last night or this morning, where they've mentioned the fact that no one should forget that the theatrical side of this industry generated an all-time record income of $42 billion last year, and the movie distributors' share of this was about $20 billion. They then said, today we make it clear again that we will not be showing movies that fail to respect the windows, as it does not make any economic sense for us. We have full confidence in the industry's current business model. No one should forget that the theatrical side of this is worth X amount of pounds. So, yeah, I think I agree with what John said. I think it's very much, gritting of teeth, as a baring of teeth, as he said, in the sense that they're obviously not happy about what's happened with Trolls, but the bottom line is we're in very uncertain, very different times, and from a business point of view, that must have made perfect sense for Universal. Like you said, Dave, people obviously talking a lot about the fact that it's made these records and made loads of money on VOD and stuff like that, but it's very skewed in the sense that this hasn't happened before. In a normal circumstance, people wouldn't have spent this money to watch Trolls at home in the same way. They might have done during a half term or whatever, but in terms of normality, in a normal situation, people wouldn't be spending this much money to watch Trolls at home. It's just because the circumstances presented this opportunity. And it is only Trolls. It's no disrespect to the film. It's an animated family film. They're never going to do this with the Fast and the Furious. They're never really going to do this with... There was never any chance of them releasing Bond on VOD so we could all watch it over Easter, was there? Do you know what I mean? It's just a very unique situation anyway. And I think Trolls represented an opportunity for them to maybe dip their feet in and test the water, as it were, and see what could be accomplished afterwards with, as John said, about the windows changing and the experience of watching a film changing a little bit after we come out of this, because no one really knows what's going to happen, and no one even knows if these films are going to be released when they've been rescheduled for, because we just don't know, do we? But
yeah, but also there's so Trolls World Tour is not the first animated sequel to go to home entertainment. You know what I mean? So it's almost like, and I don't know how good Trolls World Tour is. I haven't seen it. I'm not interested in
Lion King 3, what a film.
Yeah, this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Lion King 1.5 or whatever. So
I think there's a Little Mermaid 2, isn't there?
I think so.
There's a 2 and a 3 to everything, isn't there?
Yeah.
But I guess this is the point. If you could make 100 million by saying it's premium VOD, then you've automatically upped whatever money you were going to get by releasing a kind of a bit of a cack-handed, sequel to an anime film. So it's one of those things that maybe it's a bit of a coup for them because they were the first. But not every film's going to make 100 million. Not every film is going to have that kind of publicity. Where it's all on buses and stuff, and then all of a sudden, we're not going to go out. We can't go out. Let's have it at home. So I don't know. I'm not sure if they had to do with something like Minions. I think they would make a killing again because you can have the new Minions film at home if you're being told you need to have it by your kids or whatever, and they would make a similar amount of money there. I don't know. It's a strange time. I just think that this is not the first sequel to kind of go straight to home, but it is the one that's probably made the most money. So good for them.
Wouldn't it be interesting? It would have been very interesting if, say, I know that there's a few other VODs that went on that had a cinema release, at least for a few. You know, obviously Invisible Man went on, but it was in the cinema for about 4 to 6 weeks beforehand, so it had its run and made its money. But I wonder what the situation would have been if it was one of those that had come out, if it was an Invisible Man or The Hunt that went on there, or even in the UK we had Misbehaviour come out for what, 5 days, and then they made the decision, Pathé I think it is, excuse me, to put it on VOD. It'd be interesting to see how many people have gone to seek out Misbehaviour that maybe hadn't gone online to seek it out, but would have gone if it was in the cinema, because it's the type of film that would have gone to one of the, as you say, one of the art house cinemas to see it and enjoy it there more than they would watching it at home. So I think Trolls is very unique in that sense.
I was going to say, think about The Hunt, right? Which was obviously, you know, it was held over from last sort of September. But think about the fact that it's got a particular reputation ahead of time. Imagine if they started putting these out by saying like it's too violent for, you know, the censors or whatever. It's too violent for, you know, for cinemas or something. They could make loads of money off that. Imagine if something like that, when some massive horror film decided to go straight to, you know, premium VOD now rather than just VOD. I think you'd see, you know, I think The Hunt would have made a huge amount of money, you know. So yeah, it's almost like it's the creation and the validation of the premium VOD slot, which may end up being something that sort of slots in between the VOD or the Blu-ray and the cinema release. Maybe the compromise is going to be reached is that they'll have a window and they'll just sort of slot premium VOD in there a little earlier, like they do now. But because of the fact that everyone's talking about it, it has a bit more prestige now.
They do have these, you know, Sky. I know Sky Cinemas, or whatever. Is it Sky Originals? Is it they call them the movies that they've released in the cinema, which also come out on Sky on the same day? You know, so that they're generally smaller releases. There's none of these big franchises, but they've got the model where they do them at the same time. So they're obviously, you know, trying that, and it's probably doing well for them. What was the Dave Bautista film that went out in the cinemas at the same time?
As it was football one.
Yeah,
Final Score.
And it wasn't a dreadful film. I quite enjoyed it. But yeah, that was just one example of where, you know, you can do it together.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens afterwards. I think John's right. I think it will be where a certain amount of maybe not the big sort of big tier. I mean, I can't imagine Bond or say Nolan's Tenet or Mulan or Black Widow getting maybe a premium release at some point just for the fear of piracy or whatever. But there's nothing to say that something like a Misbehaviour, like a family film like Trolls, can't navigate that space in between the windows to have this premium VOD, to give people the option of, look, it's expensive to go to the cinema. You can watch this 3 weeks before it comes out on Sky Cinema or is available on DVD, but you have to pay, you know, the 15, 16, 17 pound to watch it, but you only get it for the 2 days and it's only available for 2 weeks. That might make people want to wait more to watch it for nothing. Might give people an option, particularly over half terms and stuff, where you know, like you two obviously as dads and with kids and stuff might see it as an opportunity. Obviously your kids are different ages, but if they're of a certain age,
there they are, look.
If they had there they are. If they had the opportunity to maybe, you know, during the Easter half term to sit and watch something like Trolls and pay 20 quid, you know, you and other parents might go, actually, we'd spend that much money going out, getting the kids in the car and taking them to the cinema. So, but I can't imagine ever seeing it for anything that's a substantial potential close to billion, if not over $1 billion franchise like Fast and Furious.
Think about like Black Widow. Because Black Widow's now got Disney Plus that it could just
exactly. They don't need to, do they? Yeah.
Or they got that model and stuff. So I don't know. I would just hate I would hate for this to be. I would hate for the sort of the digging in of the heels to mean that the cinema experience as we experience it gets worse or is in any way compromised downwards. Do you know what I mean? I want it to be better for everyone. I want there to be more money in it so that they can spend more money making it a better thing.
It's in everyone's interest.
Yeah, it really is. But I don't know. I think that the way that it's heading, and that doesn't mean that we can't stop it, but the way that it's heading is that everything is going to go straight into home because streaming services are so well accepted now. All the models are up there, and you know, massive TV screens and sound systems and all the rest of it. And the cinema experience is so bad, so they've got to do something to bring people back into the cinemas. I don't think it's throwing their Trolls out of the pram and saying, no, I'm not going to do it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, indeed. Well, look, hey, as a final thought then, before we wrap up, do you think this situation will be solved by the time A, we come out of lockdown, and B, when the first big Universal release, which is probably going to be James Bond,
Yes.
When that happens, do you think this will have been resolved by then?
Yeah.
Yes, 100%.
Without a doubt.
Because it's money.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be resolved because they're thinking, oh yeah, the customer could do this or the cinema guy could do that. It would be better for them. They'll just think what makes the most sense, and it's making money, as David said. So of course they'll sort it out. Whether or not this will just pass us by and be a blip, or whether or not it'll create real questions, who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, or whether there's new compromises in between. As we've discussed, maybe
sure.
that might
it'll be
change
interesting to see if Universal reply, with their thoughts to this, the Odeon and the Cineworld press releases. They might just not say anything and be like, "Well, you need us more than we need you."
It's fantastic advertising for all their upcoming slate, isn't it? Because everyone's going, I can't see this or I can't see
There's
that.
There's this and this and this.
I didn't know that. Yeah, so do you know what I mean? It makes complete sense to them just to say nothing.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, sort of broadcast it on the cloud or something, and then everyone can see.
Money talks. Money talks.
As always,
an old-fashioned leak. But
I'd be interested to see what people who are following this think, because that will be a really interesting. It's the kind of thing that you don't really think about until it's here. We've been thinking about it for a long time, so we've seen the way that things have gone. But I'd be interested to see what people would prefer. What would they like? Are they cinema goers regularly, or will they? And not just for like Avengers films, but for other big films. What do they think? So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see if anyone comments.
Comment.
Yes.
Comment.
Yeah. Comment. I'm sure there will be. I'm sure there will be very soon, and we will keep you abreast of any changes, because we're us being us doing what we do. We are very intrigued by the situation, so we'll see what happens the other side. But I'd imagine by this time next week, or the week, the end of May at least, there'll be a resolution, whatever it might be.
Keep your eyes peeled on HeyUGuys.com, people.
Indeed, that resolution though might be something that changes everything slightly. Who knows? Dave and John, thank you very much for joining me on the old HeyUGuys channel. Lovely to see you. Pleasure as ever. If you like this video, make sure you give us a little thumbs up.
I liked it. John, did you like it?
I'm giving you a thumbs up.
There's 3 likes.
Or as Joe Wicks calls them, high fives. Give them high fives.
Give them a high five. That might be our most.
He had 30,000 high fives yesterday. That's all right.
We're quite close. Oh, the police are coming for John.
It's my ring light. I can't keep pressing the button. I don't know what's going on. I feel like I'm in a Gaspar Noé film now, so it's a bit creepy. So goodbye, everyone.
Give us a like on the video below. Make sure you subscribe if you don't already, and leave us a comment and give us your thoughts on what you think is going to happen with the future of cinema, particularly revolving Universal Pictures, Cineworld and Odeon. We shall see. Anyway, until next time, we will bid you adieu. Take care and goodbye.
Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey